Going through attorney Keith Davidson's testimony, as we've been discussing already, it's not hard to feel the looming presence of Michael Cohen or anticipate how his testimony and demeanor may land with the jury. They got a pretty good sense of it today. But it was out there already back in 2018 when Sarah Seidner talked to Davidson about his dealings with Cohen. He told Sarah then that his first contact with Michael Cohen was in 2011 when Stormy Daniels asked Davidson to demand a website remove the story of her alleged affair with Donald Trump, and Davidson called Cohen.
What was that conversation like?
Well, I think it was a lot of chest pounding. To the best of my recollection, it was a lot of, how dare you, and we'll chase you to the ends of the earth, and this is not a true story, and we're going to come and get you. And we said, whoa, hold on, hold your horses, and that's not at all the reason for our calling. And we said that Ms. Daniels does not want this story up, and we're going to do our best to take it down.
Joining us now with more of what Keith Davidson said on the stand today, CNN's John Berman, who has the transcript that gets released late in the day. So Davidson recounted that 2011 phone call on the stand today.
Yeah, he said much the same thing on the stand that he said to my morning partner, Sarah Seidner, right there. He recounted being called initially by Gina Rodriguez, who was Stormy Daniels' publicist. And Keith Davidson said, quote, Gina called me up to tell me that, quote, some jerk called me and was very, very aggressive and threatened to sue me. And would you like, Keith, to call this jerk back? The prosecutor asks, I hate to ask it this way, but who was that jerk? Davidson responds, it was Michael Cohen. And then a little bit later, Davidson testifies, I was transferred to Michael Cohen, I introduced myself, and before I could barely get my name out, I was just met with like a hustle barrage of insults and insinuations and allegations that went on for quite a while. Steinglass, the prosecutor, asks, what was the gist of what he was accusing you of? Davidson says, I don't think he was accusing us of anything. He was just screaming. And Jeffrey, I know you've reported on Caitlin. I know you probably had a relation with Michael Cohen way back when. I covered Trump way back to 2012, and this is how Michael Cohen would interact with you when he spoke to you. It was generally screaming.
Well, and Trump's attorney, I should note, was grinning at points when Keith Davidson was testifying that. I never saw Trump himself laughing, but even Trump's team was laughing. I mean, everyone who knows Michael Cohen knows how Michael Cohen is. And as he was saying that, when they had to say, I hate to ask you a silly question, but who is that jerk? And he made clear he was talking about Michael Cohen. It did kind of prompt a round of laughter in the courtroom.
By the way, that's the prosecution who's going to be calling him as their main witness, which is...
Well, and the jerk and angry and aggressive stuff, that's not good. But what's even a bigger problem for the prosecution is that this same witness said, quote, that later he was talking to Michael Cohen and said, I don't believe a word really that you say. I mean, if he's mean or a jerk, fine, who cares? But if the prosecution's own witnesses is saying, I don't believe a word this guy was saying to me. David Pecker earlier said he's prone to exaggeration. The banker who started off today said he basically lied to me about every aspect of this transaction. He was going around his wife's back, didn't tell me it was political. So the defense on closing, you guys, Stephanie and Arthur, you would have a field day with this.
You do, just the logistics of it as a criminal defense attorney, I'm old school, I'm not very digital, I'm very analog. So when these things are happening, I have a file that says Cohen on it, right? And all of these little lines, I'm just writing, or I'll find the transcript that night and I just put it in. And then whatever it is, a couple days, week before Cohen's up there, you just start, trying to lock Michael Cohen. The way the prosecutor's laying this foundation, in your cross-examination, you have to lay the foundation, and you did speak to Steinglass, and you did speak to this one, you did speak to that one, and then you could stick it up his nose in summation and just say, folks, we're going to go piece by piece, all of the prosecutor's witnesses. This isn't me, Mr. Aidala, telling you their witness is a liar. This is their witnesses telling you their witness is a liar.
Mayor, the prosecution is clearly trying to get ahead of this, of his credibility issues, by trying to get as much corroborating evidence in as possible. I mean, that's why you have these documents that are not the most exciting things to hear about on a stand, but they actually back up some of the things Cohen is saying.
A lot of this has been boring, but it is laying the foundation brick by brick. And that foundation seems to be very, very strong because they know at the top is going to be a very shaky witness. They can say he's a jerk. They can say he's an a-hole. They can say he's, aggressive. He was he was Trump's bulldog, and he was acting just in the way that Trump wants his current attorneys to act, in very aggressive ways. So they are building this foundation, I think, very well to be able to support what Michael Cohen is going to say.
The classic prosecutor line in response to the attacks on a cooperator like this are, he's supposedly a liar. How can the prosecution ask you to rely on a witness like this? And the prosecutor says, we didn't choose Michael Cohen to be the witness. Donald Trump chose him to be the witness because he's the one who chose to do all these transactions with him. And, obviously that doesn't work all the time, but there are lots of people in prison on the testimony of people who are a lot worse than Michael Cohen.
It's also interesting because, if I'm a juror sitting on this and just seeing the cavalcade of, the AMI people, the Pecker, the Michael Cohen, all these people, the amount of sort of just sleazy underbelly, yeah. but that is the milieu that Donald Trump has been living in his entire life. Basically, it seems like these are the people he's fraternizing with, in many, both sexually and socially.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yes.
Look, and there's so much cross-pollination every which way with all of these witnesses in all the various stories. Even Keith Davidson was asked about the Access Hollywood tape, for instance. It was very interesting because the prosecution used Keith Davidson to point out that there was a shift when the Access Hollywood tape came out. Steinglass, the prosecutor, asks, what impact, if any, did the release of the Access Hollywood tape have on interest in the Stormy Daniels story so far as you were aware? Davidson says, so far as I'm aware, it had tremendous influence. Steinglass asks, can you explain that a little bit to the jury, please? Davidson says, before Access Hollywood, there was very little, if any, interest from what I understand. And Gina Rodriguez, was trying to sell the Stormy Daniels Donald Trump story. It wasn't until Access Hollywood that interest sort of reached a crescendo.
Does it matter, do you think, for jurors that the former president, and I don't know if it probably hasn't been admitted yet into evidence, but I assume prosecutors will at some point somehow, that the former president denies even knowing these two women, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. And you've already had David Pecker saying multiple times that Trump would repeatedly ask, how's our girl Karen? And even showed that black and white photo of them walking in the White House. And according to David Pecker, at the time that photo was taken, Trump is asking her, how's Karen doing? And David Pecker's answering. Does that if he lied about that, as a juror, would that impact the way they see the former president?
For sure. This is important
And it was
prosecutor
entered
evidence.
into the
Exactly.
evidence
The
today.
reason they had that C-SPAN witness and the court reporter was because they're starting to show, prosecutors are starting to show the jury videotapes of Donald Trump saying, I don't know these people, who are these people? And that's powerful for prosecutors because we don't know if Donald Trump's going to take the stand. I'm still on no, firmly no. But you still want the jurors to hear his voice, especially when he's lying. Now, it's not the ultimate end issue, but you want the jurors hearing him lying about what he knows about these people because you say, why would he lie about this? If he had nothing to hide, why would he lie about this? So it's important evidence.
And it's the worst when you're a criminal defense attorney
Yeah.
and you hear that because you can't cross-examine it.
Right.
It's your guy, it's a tape or film or video, it's real, and you're like, wow. So in one situation where I was confronted with this, and it was really horrible evidence, in summation, I just took every single word and broke it down and try to play thesaurus with it and try to change the definition of what the person was actually saying. But Anderson, it is, there are times when you're a defense attorney, you just sit there like, oh, geez. It's like, what am I going to do here? Especially when your client goes out of the courtroom and berates the judge, and then you got to go in and you're the lawyer the next day who's got to deal with them.
Did you want to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that we're showing that Trump is a liar, 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 pants on fire. And one of the old sayings is, everybody can't be lying,
At a certain point, yeah.
Yeah.
You take it for what it's worth.